hear me?
Alright, we're gonna get the lights.
Right.
We're gonna get the lights all the way up.
If there was a Alamo, Pakistan, they would have like a special American menu for this movie.
Just have pizza and beer.
Yeah. So I sit here. Oh, is this working? Do we know if it's working?
We're maybe on the screen in 3 other Alamos in 3 other cities right now.
Is there any way to check?
No, there's not. There's not. Speaking of technology, if you are in one of those other markets and you can hear us,
tweet at me.
Yes, use the hashtag #AskAlamo if you would like to have your question submitted, and we will pick. Here, how about this?
Yeah.
Right now, if we're on screen in those other cities, someone tweet us and say, "I can see you." #AskAlamo, and that'll let us know.
Okay.
All right.
And if one of you fucking jokesters here tweets at us, so help me Allah.
All right. So, as we were talking about before, you're obviously a huge X-Files nerd. You had a guest starring role on the X-Files resurgence. There are giant X's under us. That's a coincidence, but still cool. There's many X-Files references in the movie. I will admit that I'm a huge nerd and have that ringtone.
Oh, they see you. I can see you. Hello from San Francisco.
Right. Hey, everybody.
Alamo, NYC, and we can see you and hear you in Austin. So great. Well done. Well done. All right. Thanks so much for coming.
Yeah, that was great. Hey, we tested out Skype. We know it works.
So this was sponsored by Skype.
Yeah.
Just download it. It's free.
It works. No, so all that to say, back to how much of a huge X-Files nerd I am. And so you also have a podcast, or did have a podcast that went on hiatus called the X-Files Files.
Yeah.
So what I'm getting at is you were literally in the city where the black oil was discovered.
Right.
In X-Files. Like, actually, if you guys remember X-Files Fight the Future, the motion picture, where they were with the city, the skyline of Dallas, it was like right here.
I feel like a hyper-specific X-Files fact is not this crowd right now.
Maybe not. They're not responding quite like I expected.
First of all, I want to thank Alamo. Like, you guys made us a Pakistani menu. That's so fucking awesome. Like, they contacted us, and Emily and I, like, gave suggestions, and the chef Brad is his name, right?
Yeah.
He did such a great job. I ate everything. It's delicious because, in the movie, food is like a really important thing because the movie's about a lot of different things, but one of the things it is about is that there's more in common with us than there is different. Like, we have more in common than we don't, and food is one thing that, like, binds us. And if you notice in the movie, all my scenes with my family are around the dinner table. We're always eating, and when me and Holly and Ray start bonding as a family, the first thing we do together is we eat. So it really means a lot to me, like, that you guys made this menu. It's so fucking awesome, and it tastes great.
Yeah, no, thank you. I mean, that's kind of what we're all about, is supporting these movies that we love in these ways, and I think that's what going to the Alamo is about.
Yeah, what menu did you guys have for Raw?
The audience just ate each other. They just took a bite out of it. Yeah. And I don't know if
you sold a lot of tickets, but not a lot of repeat business.
No, we really ate up our audience on that one. I don't know if you, thanks. I don't know if you realize this, but you have quotes in the menu about.
Yeah, we wrote. Emily and I wrote, like, because this really was, it's like it's a very personal movie. And the fact that they wanted us to, like, do this menu, like, it really was, like, I was so moved, like, I'm just writing the quotes, I cried. I'm like, when I read the menu, I cried. When I ate the food, I cried. I'm thinking about the food I just ate, I'm about to cry. It's a real disaster.
And you mentioned it is a personal movie. I imagine it is about you and your wife and your story, and a lot of it is very true to life. I imagine that now that you've been doing this press tour and doing these audience, I imagine you've gotten some weird questions because people now kind of feel like they probably know you and your wife. What's the weirdest? Do you have, like, does one come to mind?
Well, the one that one person has asked was, like, when you're on stage and you're getting heckled and you're trying to do a joke about toast, what's the joke you're trying to do? Remember that? There's like a point where I keep trying to go to a bit I have about toast, and we didn't really have a joke. The joke was, I was like, what could be like a really stupid observational joke that I could keep trying to go to? The only thing we would come up with was, toast is like a giant crouton. That's all we have. It's better if you don't know.
Somebody's hand in the audience just went down. They're like, fuck, that was my question.
I see.
It's like the Breakfast Club joke. Like, he never finishes it. And
Yeah.
it's better not finished.
Yeah, totally. There was someone who was like, what did you and Emily's Southern family have in common? And another thing, it's food. Like,
Yeah.
Southern culture, food is very important. In Pakistani culture, food is very important. So
Yeah.
even though we're from like very different parts of the world, we both like overeat, and our parents force us to eat way too much. The
Yeah.
only difference is Pakistani food's better than Southern food.
Shots fired.
Yeah, this is clearly not the crowd, but I'm crushing in Alamo, Pakistan right now.
So I have kind of a hyper nerdy question. You both use your real first names in the movie, but you use your entire real
Yeah.
first and last. Why?
Huge mistake.
Yeah.
I honestly hadn't like thought about it, and while we were writing, there's so much to do, and I was preparing for the scenes, and Emily was like, hey, we should come up with different surnames, second names for us, and I was like, we'll figure it out later. And then the first thing we shot was the stuff in the hospital. That was the first thing we shot, and they came and they put the visitor tag on me, and it said Kumail Nanjiani, and I was like, fuck. And we didn't have time to reprint or come up with the name, so really, I wish there was a more interesting answer, but it's laziness on my part. Yeah, totally.
And, I mean, obviously, this is a movie version of events, so you get to kind of rewrite some things. But were you that cool and smooth when you first hit on your wife in your life?
I will say that was writing names in Urdu was like a move of mine, and I wasn't like hyper successful, but like I said in the movie, I had some minor success with it, and so I did it to Emily, and in real life, in the movie, she calls me out, she's like, bullshit, but in real life, it fucking worked.
Yeah. When you do it in the movie, I was like, this guy fucks right here. Just so Kumail.
Yeah, it is. And in real life it worked, and for months she would tell her friends, like, it was so charming, it was so romantic, you wrote my name in Urdu, and 4 months in I'd be like, honey, I have something to tell you. You weren't the first one it worked with, but you were the last one it worked with.
That's another good line.
Yeah, I have some good lines.
Speaking of,
wow, we have a lot of questions.
All right. You want to ask?
Ian McFarlane asked, a lot of comics avoid real emotion, but you, Emily, and everyone embraced it to such amazing effect. Why is that so rare? I think, I've never gotten this question. That's really interesting. I feel like, I guess I'm just going to have to wing it. It's like, it's hard engaging with yourself, it's very hard. I feel like, especially for guys, the only acceptable emotion for guys to have is anger. That's like the only manly emotion, guys crying is not considered manly, and even joy can turn to anger so easily. I feel like every emotion can turn into anger really easily. So while we were writing this movie, and for me, my big project was like trying to like actually feel my emotions and be in touch with them and not like bottle them up and turn them into anger, and I think maybe that's why it's rare. It's just, when you're opening yourself up emotionally, you're pretty vulnerable. People can get in there and really, but that's what you have to. And I'll tell you, like, I started like working on, acting for this movie. Like, I'd never taken any acting classes, and I started working with an acting coach. Her name's Myra Turley. She's awesome. And she was teaching me how to like feel and live in sadness and all of that. And honestly, since then, like, the last few months, I've like cried at every movie. So I'm like making up for lost time. It has been since November 9th, so there might be other factors that come into it.
I saw your tweet from today on the plane that I guess you watched Beauty and the Beast on the plane and started crying during the ballroom scene.
Yeah, it was the animated one. I'll tell you what was the worst part, was that I just skipped to the ballroom scene.
just have a good cry on the plane.
I didn't think it was going to be a cry. I was like, well, I haven't seen the animated Beauty and the Beast Grease ballroom scene in a while, and I just skipped to it, and I was like, oh no, let's do that. Song as old as rhyme.
Tale as old as time.
I know. The lyrics of that song are fucking beautiful. I will fucking arm wrestle you if you argue with me on that.
I'm not going to argue with you on that. I agree.
There's another one. What is potentially losing your family to someone you love feel like? That's from Jessica.
Damn, that is.
Yeah. I feel like, it's the one thing that you kind of have to trust that love is bigger than everything else. You kind of have to have that faith. And I didn't give my parents enough credit. Like, I thought that my parents were sort of these rigid people who were set in their ways and that they were already the people they were always going to be.
Yeah.
But you realize, even your parents are like growing and evolving and changing, and they're having, they have struggles just like I do. And seeing them grow and accept Emily was like really, really beautiful. So it was very scary, but ultimately it made me just a lot more optimistic about everything.
Yeah. How did I'm assuming your parents have seen the movie. How did they take the movie?
They loved it. They loved it. They're very proud of it. It was jarring for them because, to see like a big chunk of your life on a big screen, like it's jarring for me and Emily, and we like made it.
Yeah.
It's still like weird. They didn't make it like like a little while ago they had no movies that were exactly about their lives. So there's a whole movie in theaters with previews on TV. Amazon is putting it out. That's like about their lives.
Yeah.
So it's like kind of like jarring, but they're very proud of it, and they're proud of us. And it was interesting, like writing dialogue for my parents to say to me. I understood their perspective.
Oh wow!
Like way more than I ever had before.
Yeah. Wow. Oh my gosh. Yeah, I would imagine that through this process, you probably had a lot of like self-discovery and.
Yeah, I'll tell you, like we started shooting this last May, and since then, like I said, I've just been like I've been like an open wound, just like walking around. Like it really is a lot.
Pouring tears over Beauty and the Beast Disney songs.
I know, it's so much. Like commercials, not even good commercials. It's like
So if people see you in public and they just run up to you with their phones with a Disney musical number, there's a good chance that Waterworks are just gonna.
Yeah, you don't even need that prep. Just show me a picture of your mom and your dad, and I'll start crying. It's a lot to handle.
Don't do that. All right, so one more question, and then we'll kick it out to you guys, and we'll take some more Twitter questions. So in Silicon Valley, I have to give you guys credit. At the end of season 2, you have what I consider personally, and what is widely considered the best dick joke ever written.
Season 1.
Season 1, yeah.
We really peaked early.
Yeah. And man, I gotta say, you followed it up with the best 9/11 joke in this movie I've ever heard. It is so good.
I mean, we've only had like 16 years to work on it. That was terrible.
All right, let's take it out.
And here's one question. Someone said, Ryan O'Donnell, did you have an air mattress when you and Emily got together? And the answer is, I did have an air mattress. The difference is, in real life, it wasn't inflated. So it was just like laying on the ground, but like a millimeter off the ground.
Yeah, that's not a mattress. That's just a piece of vinyl over the ground.
Yeah, dude.
All right, let's kick it out to you guys. Who's got the first question? Right here.
Hi. Favorite video game?
Yeah, because you and your wife also have another podcast called The Indoor Kids.
Yeah, I'll tell you, the other thing that's been weird is like while making this movie, everything that we did while we were making it has become, for me, like part of the experience of making this movie, because it really was like, I don't know, I feel obviously feel very connected to the movie, but also the process of making it. And so everything I played during that is like special to me. Like I played Uncharted 4 the whole time we were shooting it. She like pointed at her like this guy like, oh, yeah, I told you.
We should all hang out. That's my favorite.
And weirdly, I didn't even realize, but while we were promoting it, I started playing Uncharted 4 again. So I'm playing it again right now, And I didn't even connect that that's probably what it was, that it was reminding me of it and putting me back in that space or whatever. But that's really, really great.
It's so funny you say that, because the entire time I was watching this, I was like, you know what this really reminds me of? Uncharted 4. I just expected you at any moment to swing and jump punch somebody.
That's right. Yeah. It's a great.
This is apparently not an X-Files crowd or Uncharted crowd.
It's fine. Yeah. We tell them what crowd they are, and they'll listen to us. Okay. Can I ask you? Hi. Are you a child? Is there a child there? Hi. How old is he? He's 6. You're the youngest person to have ever seen the movie. I am sorry. Do you have any questions about X-Files or Uncharted 4? Yes, the mom. How did I propose? Why didn't we put that in the movie is the question. Because the proposal actually wasn't that cinematic. We just kind of like talked about it, and we had conversations about it. And we were like, I think we should get married. And honestly, we got married about 3 months after the events of the movie. We walked into like a city hall in Chicago and just got married. And then we went to get brunch at this hip place in Chicago called Paulina's. And we got there and we were like, we just got married. And they were like, there's about a 40-minute wait. All they gave me was one free glass of orange juice. But we just kind of talked about it, you know, and like I went and got like a $20 ring from Walmart. That's true, that's all we could afford at the time. And then once we got married, Emily was like, you know, I would like to be proposed to at some point. So even though we were married, we were like, I kind of planned this thing where we went to Montauk, because I love Eternal Sunshine. I was like, Montauk, that's the most romantic place in the world. We stayed at this hotel, and we went to the beach in the middle of the night, and I like got down on my knees and I proposed to her. And I'll tell you, the only way to really surprise someone with a proposal is to already be married for 1.5 years. That's the only way they won't see it coming, because she did not see it coming. There was a fucking crab there. Good and bad.
I've seen a couple of Twitter questions about Ray Romano, who is fucking amazing in this movie. I love how you have, you know, obviously your friends, a lot of the new school comedians, but you also have a bunch of old school comedians, like, you know, David Alan Grier, and Ray Romano is just so good.
Yeah, he's
so the Twitter questions were about kind of casting him and if he was a mentor to you on set and what you learned from him.
I mean, I was a big fan of Ray Romano, obviously. You know, I was a big fan of his stand-up. I loved his show. And it was actually Judd Apatow's he was like, Ray Romano should be Emily's dad. And it was such a left field choice.
Yeah.
But we all immediately knew it was right, because even though Everybody Loves Raymond, which is like a big, sort of a broad multicam show with the audience and stuff, he always felt so grounded. And I feel like there's this really appealing like melancholy to him all the time, even when he's really funny. There's like a sadness to him. And so we were like, I think he'd be great as this dad. And it's really been really amazing, like getting to know him and like becoming friends with him. And he's just like, he's like such a natural, you know, like there's no like, from what I see, he can just like turn it on and off. Like he'd just be hanging out, telling funny stories, and then do scenes.
Yeah.
You know, it was interesting to see all the amazing actors in this movie and like the different processes they had.
It's the classic like comedians make some of the best dramatic actors, like the two sides of the theater mask. He's so good, and Holly Hunter is amazing. Like
she's the Holly Hunter of acting.
Yeah, I think we all collectively want her to be our mom. So
she's awesome.
Yeah, she's
honestly like so Zoe Kazan was the first person we cast. We auditioned a bunch of really great actors, and we were like, okay, Zoe was like perfect and right for it, and she could do comedy and drama and everything. And the next person was Judd Apatow was like, I think it should be Holly Hunter. We were like, all right, good luck, buddy. Make it happen.
Yeah.
And then, you know, we sent her the script. We wrote this really long letter to her, Emily and I, this really personal letter, and we sent her the script, and we printed out the letter, and we, you know, hand wrote it and signed it. And then she agreed to do the movie, and it was wonderful. And just like 3 days ago, I was doing a Q&A with her, and I was like, hey, that letter that we sent you, she's like, I never got it.
Oh, wow.
She still hasn't read the letter, and there's no copies of it because it was handwritten. it's lost to the wind. But she was, I was so intimidated to work with her, but she's really, truly an amazing actress, but a really lovely person. And before, I talked to her on the phone, and I'd never met her, I didn't know her, and we were setting up this rehearsal. It was going to be me, Mike, the director, and Holly. So I talked to her on the phone, I was like, can we do it this day? And she was like, I can't do that day, my cat has acupuncture. And I was like, okay. And so then we finally set it up for another day, and we did a full day of rehearsal. And then next day we did like another half day of rehearsal, and I was like kind of getting to know her. So finally I was like, hey, so did your cat have acupuncture? And she's like, no, I don't have a cat. I was like, okay.
She was just making up weird excuses to avoid you.
Yeah. I was like, we're going to get along great.
Yeah, that's awesome. Yeah. All right, yeah, right here.
Making a book out of my mom's recipes
Like a cookbook, yeah.
and rules of cricket. I feel like half that book is going to be real popular.
I feel like there's probably already a rules of cricket book, at least one. Yeah.
You know, how much time do we have? I can walk you through it. Does anyone have a long stick? Those are all real cricket terms, by the way, that I was, they have like such like silly mid-on and silly mid-off and all that shit. That's all real. And people are like, oh, such a sticky wicket. Like, that really means something. My mom, this is the weird thing about my mom's recipes. You can take them and you can try them, but you can't get them the way there's like some magic or something. There's like
love.
Yeah, that's it. It's love. I don't have love in my heart, so I can't make like a biryani that tastes great. Here, this is a good one. Can I ask this?
Yeah.
Tyler asks, were Zoe's high school goth pictures real? This is, you can go on. So Emily, my wife, was a goth in high school, and Zoe was not a goth. So a lot of those pictures actually are, we were doing like Zoe's face photoshopped onto Emily's goth pictures, and it wasn't quite looking right. So we got the clothes that Emily would wear and the wig and everything, and Emily directed a photo shoot with Zoe at a cemetery. That's what Emily had done. And Emily would have like pictures with swords and stuff, and we shot that with Zoe, and we were like, this is too much.
Oh man.
Because people see that and they think like, oh, what a funny gag. No, look up Emily B. Gordon is my lovely wife, and look up her Throwback Thursdays. Her game is tight. She has amazing pictures. Like, she has like purple frizzy huge hair and ripped everything and just like the most sullen look on her face. It's fucking awesome.
This isn't a question, it's a statement. Maybe we're not coming in quite as clear in some of the other market. And Ellen Day Crady says, I really wish we had the Pied Piper video chat you guys invented.
Yeah, it's just a TV show, it's not reality. Here's a question from Jose Munster. Did you and your wife actually meet at a comedy club? We did. The way we met was exactly like that. She actually woohooed me at a comedy show, and I said that exact thing to her. That is exactly how we met in Chicago.
What would you say percentage-wise, like how true to life is the movie?
It's tough to know, because if you were like, what happened to you guys, tell me in 40 seconds, that's all, the broad strokes are all the same.
Yeah.
But we changed a lot of to make something a movie, there's a lot of work that has to be done. We wrote the script for 3 years before we got Mike to come on, and then worked with Mike Showalter, the director, who's fucking amazing, and worked with him for another year. So there's a lot of work, especially with a movie like this, where you really have to find the balance of like drama and comedy. It's really, really. It's a lot of work, but what's interesting is it can be precision work. It's like a lot of intellectual work, but also you also have to always keep connected to the emotional stuff, and you sort of have to trust that. I was thinking about this. Like, I think writing is inherently, it's an emotional process. Like, sometimes you write something, and if it makes you cry while you're writing it, there's a chance that it's going to affect people when they like experience it too. But then you have to take all those like emotional pieces that don't quite work together and preserve their emotionality and put them into a structure that would work in a traditional movie.
Right.
So that's kind of what it was. Our first draft was like 170 pages long. It was like, so a normal movie draft should be 100 pages. This was 170 pages, and we like wrote down every single thing we remembered. And then we sort of took us like 3 or 4 years to sort of shape it into something that people would want to watch.
Wow. So it was there. You know, I remember hearing an interview with Jordan Peele about Get Out, and he said that there was some pressure for him to star in it, and he felt like that would be wrong. Did you feel the opposite? Was there any pressure?
Was there pressure on me to not star in it?
No. Was there?
Great question. Thank you for coming to the Q&A.
Studios try and sell movies on names, and obviously you are the perfect person to play yourself. But was there any kind of that pushback, or was there really creative freedom to make the movie you guys wanted to make?
Well, from the beginning, because it was me, Emily, Barry Mendel, one of the producers, and Judd Apatow. We started working on it together. So from the beginning, Judd was like, "You're gonna write it and you're gonna star it." So that was always the plan. You know, Emily's not an actress; she has no interest in performing. She's a writer. So the plan was always, I think Judd likes to work with people who kind of like do everything. Yeah. So that was always the plan from the beginning, and we were all aware that, you know, getting a Hollywood comedy made with me as the star is going to be difficult. So we wrote it to be very low budget, and then we made it on a very, very low budget. Like, this is by far the lowest budget movie that Judd has ever worked on.
Yeah.
You know, it was a very quick shoot. We like shot a lot of minutes every day. It was a quick shoot. So that's how we kind of like alleviated that, and that's why we have like Holly Hunter and Ray Romano in it, and also like with Judd, because Judd's like such a big deal. People want to work with him, and you know, for a lot of like independent financiers, this was their first shot at working with Judd. Yeah. So he really like protected us and made sure we like got to make the movie we wanted to make.
Yeah, and then it went on to be like, I think it was like the second highest price acquisition in like Sundance history, which is crazy.
Yeah, amazing. I know, it's too much. It's crazy because it was such a small movie and it's such an underdog, and then at Sundance it sold for this huge amount. So now like I feel like there's all this pressure on it, you know?
No, that's awesome. Congratulations. All right, yes, right here. Yes.
What were some of the most difficult scenes for me to shoot? I would say generally a lot of the scenes that were towards, a lot of the scenes with my family were very hard for me. Those are the scenes I felt closest to actually going through the experience with the scenes with my family. And then the scenes, the single hardest scene was when I'm on stage having that meltdown when I'm talking about Emily, talking about like how she likes birds or whatever. That was a scene that wasn't scripted. And the plan was always that I would go out, put myself in that headspace and just like talk. And, you know, we did it like 15, 16 times, and each time it was me like rambling, trying to like literally think of what it felt like to be in there. Each one was like about 10, 12 minutes, you know? So that one was definitely the hardest. And what we did was we shot all the comedy club scenes in 2 days, and we had a crowd of extras, but they were really an audience. We were like kind of just performing comedy, and they were having a good time and laughing. So when we shot that, we made the decision to not tell them that something weird was going to happen, so we could get their actual reaction, because you only have one shot at it, you know? Because if you tell extras like you're shot, they're like, whoa, and like that's not. Every great movie you see in the background, there's some person like miming eating without a spoon in their hand, you know? So we decided to just go out, and I've been doing comedy in Bo and Kurt and Adi and Ed, who plays Sam Highsmith in it. And so for that, it was really interesting to just go out for the first take and have them slowly realize, like, oh, this is something different. It's making us uncomfortable. We really hate it. We wish we weren't here. Because that's sort of the experience of doing something like that. It's like, it's in a way, it's very self-serving, because you're kind of like ruining a lot of people's night, you know? You're like holding a lot of people like emotionally hostage. And when Emily was sick, I would go out and do stand-up, and it wasn't that extreme, but it was like that. Like I would go up and be like, full disclosure, my girlfriend's in a coma. Anyway, here's the joke I wrote, and they're like, good night, we're here on a date. I am not getting laid tonight. Like,
here's a good follow-up to my question. Now that you are a big movie star, are you officially the Pakistani Denzel?
That's not for me to decide. That's for the American public to decide. The answer is yes.
You need to do more movies about trains that don't stop. To be the Pakistani Denzel.
Yeah, that's right.
Up here?
Yeah. Hi. Oh. Yes, dude. Rage Against the Machine.
This shirt, not just a general statement. Yeah.
Yeah, dude, Rage Against the Machine. That's my advice to you. What's next? So as a comedian becoming a filmmaker, is there any way to do that? I think, honestly, you just have to do it. Like, there are so many things available to you. Like, Tangerine was made on iPhones, and it's a fucking great movie. When I saw that, I was like, you fuckers. Like, you've taken away all our excuses, Did you guys see Tangerine? It's fantastic. So you just kind of have to do it. And I feel like for me, the biggest step was in writing this was like not to judge my work too harshly, just to kind of do it. And not try and do it well, but just try and do it and trust that the process would make it good. Yes. Hi. You're dating a Pakistani guy? Get out. Unless you go into a coma, there's not a happy ending. I'm just being serious. Great moments that have happened in families. Can I ask you, how long have you been with this person? 6 months. Okay. Is he from a very traditional, or is she from a very traditional Pakistani family? Oh, you've met his family. I mean, what's great is, it really is that how similar they are, We're from literally like different sides of the globe, but and I know a globe doesn't have sides, don't be nerds. But I think that's what's great, is that, Ray Romano was one, the line when my mom goes in the movie, she's like, we thought you were on the train and you had died. And I said, nobody died on that train, man. She goes, well, did they look under the train? That's a line from the movie. And Ray was like, oh, Doris Roberts could have said that on my show, Like, so it's like, I think it's surprising how much we have in common, even with people that obviously look different from you, but even people who think different from you. Like, I feel like we're in this position now where we're like, how could this person, excuse me? Oh, okay, sorry. How could this person have, we're in a position now where I think politically and socially, some people think very differently from their families do. And I think even under that, you have to have the hope that, like, there's just so much more in common, there has to be empathy and sympathy, and it's so easy to just, put a mask over people of like what your expectations are and what you think they are. But if you really experience a person, they're generally, you can find common ground, and that's what I found between my family and Emily's family. And I think it was surprising to me, but it's really beautiful.
Yeah. No, I think that's really the beautiful thing about this movie, is that on one side, this movie is not your typical rom-com. It's showing different characters and different types of people that we're frankly not used to seeing, or if we are, we're used to seeing them in very different roles in romantic comedies. But at the same time, while you're showing different characters, you're also showing how much alike people are, and that it's really not about the differences in culture, but more about how we are.
Yeah, and that's not really what we intended to do with this movie. There was no like social message or political message. We just wanted to tell our story. Yeah. But
I think that's interesting though, because that's really your approach with comedy. Is you're getting up there on stage to a room full of very different people that all come from very different backgrounds, but you're trying to relate to something that everyone can connect to and think is funny. Yeah. So.
Yeah, I truly, that's why I love going to movie theaters. Like, you can go into a room of like 200 people you don't know and laugh at the same thing and cry at the same thing. it's really like it's like church, you know.
Yeah. I would like to ask you, do you feel like the I hate to say like current climate, I hate that term, but do you feel like it feels like it's changing for Middle Eastern actors, and we're seeing a lot more Middle Eastern actors in just roles where it's not about the fact that they're Middle Eastern, they're just playing, they're just playing characters that would maybe be reserved for different races. Do you feel like that's getting better?
Yeah, I feel like there are, like, in the beginning when a minority or ethnicity first starts getting representation, they're a stereotype. They're defined solely by that, and I think the next step is that their ethnicity or race is fully ignored.
Yeah.
But then I think the ultimate step is, I think that their race or ethnicity is part of the character, but not like, obviously not just their defining characteristic. So I think it's changing. It's still very, very difficult. The fact that you can name like the brown people who are in the industry.
Yeah.
The fact that you can name them, like someone was actually like, it's really changed. I mean, look, Hasan Minhaj, Aziz Ansari, and I was like, I'll give you 30 seconds. How many names can you come up with? Let me do it. Brendan Fraser, like once we have our Brendan Fraser, we'll know we've really made it.
Maybe you're not the Pakistani Denzel. Maybe you're the Pakistani Brendan Fraser.
Go fuck yourself. I love Brendan Fraser. I'm just saying. I don't know why you did that good, and that's just right there.
Yeah, well, we could take a couple more, I think. We'll go right down here in front, and then
Will I write your name in Urdu? Sure.
What's your name?
Oh, there's no Urdu sound for the word.
I appreciate that question. All right, we'll go right here.
What was more difficult to tell my parents that I had struggles with my faith, or that I was in love with a woman that wasn't? It all kind of came together, It's very, very tricky because writing this movie, I really understood their struggle in that they're. It's very noble. You're trying to hold on to your culture in a world where your culture isn't valued. In fact, where your culture is devalued. And so they're trying to hold on to who they are. And they really made a sacrifice bringing their kids here. And then their kids choose to be unlike them. So it's a very difficult thing. And it's very easy to be like, we're free spirits, man. Love is love. Let's just let us do it. But I really understood, for me, telling them that I didn't believe what they believed is like a very personal thing. It's like a real shock to like their whole unit, their reality. So I think that was that was more difficult for them. And it's still difficult, and it's something I struggle with, where it's like people use the term culture clash, and I don't like that term because I really think, like for me, I don't feel Pakistani and I don't feel American because, I think a lot of people define American in a way that excludes people like me, and that's just how it is. And so I'm trying to do is forge an identity for myself that uses both those things and respects them both, and doesn't reject either one. But it's difficult, it's a complicated thing.
Well, I think that's a great note to end on. I'm sure if you had a question, you can tweet it, Kumail, and
yeah, I'm sure if you have a question, you can go fuck yourself. Tweet at me.
Yeah, but
Emily's not here, so I can just stay up in bed responding to all your
questions.
Yeah.
Before we, or if you want, Photoshop a picture of his head on a various Brendan Fraser acting roles. I'm sure you'd appreciate that too. George of the Jungle, The Mummy.
Those are great movies.
Yeah.
Those are great movies.
Family classics. I'm sure you're going to go back and watch George of the Jungle and cry your eyes out.
I bet I would. Dudley Do-Right. I mean, I am. I'm a Fraser.
Well, we could sit here and name Brendan Fraser movies all night. We got to get you out of here. But when, we're very giving here in Texas, and we couldn't send you on your way from Dallas, home of where they found the black oil in X-Files. I brought you this. It was mine from when I was a kid. It is a X-Files.
Oh my God!
Fight the Future promo t-shirt.
Oh my God! That's awesome.
Yeah,
Thank you.
We gotta send you away from Dallas.
Thank you, dude. That's awesome. Have you watched it?
No, I just had that.
You haven't worn it?
No, I got to go to like an early screening when I was a kid, and I had that, and so I've been holding on to it.
It's a great movie.
I felt like it should go to you.
Yes,
so.
you felt right. Thank you so much. All right, thanks for coming, guys.
Kumail, Nanjiani.
Please tell everyone you know about the movie.
Yes,
Thank you for coming.
This is the type of movie that absolutely lives by word of mouth and your support. Of course, you can see it here at the Alamo. Tell all your friends. And if not, shut the fuck up. Don't say anything. So, thanks, guys. Drive safe today. Bye. Bye, San Francisco. And